Hello viewers, welcome to program State Affairs with Osama Khurshid. Today we will talk about the most unprecedented move taken by the Mr. Trump as he withdraw the United States of America from the Iran nuclear deal. It is very unprecedented move by Donald J. Trump, but it's not the first one. He already has been backed off from the Trans-Pacific Alliance. So let me coming back to the deal. The 2015 agreement curbed Iran's nuclear activities in return for the lifting of United Nations, the United States, and the European Union sanctions. It was signed by Mr. Trump's predecessor Barack Obama between Iran and the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, which are eventually the US, UK, France, China, and Russia plus Germany. So, the United States of America cancelled the deal, whereas Mr. Trump long opposed to the deal because when he was elected, he told that I will disqualify or declare non-recognition for that move. Now, let me tell you that what actually Mr. Trump has said about the nuclear deal. He said that this deal is defective at its core and the United States of America would withdraw, reimposing the economic sanctions on the Iran. So viewers, before I commence the program, let me tell you about the deal between the Iran and JCPOA, which is now not effective. It came after years of tensions over Iran's alleged efforts to develop a nuclear weapon. Iran insisted that its nuclear program was entirely peaceful, but again, the intentions is a fickle business. So, the international community did not believe that. And they made the pact, they have just made the accord signed. And under that accord, Iran agreed to limit its sensitive nuclear activities and allow international inspectors in return for the lifting of crippling economic sanctions, because the economy was crippling at that moment in the Iran and they must have to sign the nuclear deal. Now viewers, let me tell you that, let me shed the light that what is the actual problem of the deal and what were the points being taken on that deal when they agreed about the deal. As we know that the enriched uranium is used to make reactor fuel, but also nuclear weapons. So, Iran had 2 facilities named as Natanz and Fordo, where uranium hexafluoride gas was fed into centrifuges to separate out of the most fissile isotope U-235. Now, the low enriched uranium, which has a 3 to 4% concentration of U-235, can be used to produce fuel for the nuclear power plants. Weapon grade uranium is 19% enriched in the Iran. So, in July 2015, Iran had almost 20,000 centrifuges. Under the JCPOA, it was limited to installing no more than 5,060 of the oldest and least efficient centrifuges at Natanz until 2026, which means that 15 years after the deal's implementation day in January 2016. Now, Iran's uranium stockpile was reduced from 98% to 300 kg, and a figure that must not be exceeded until 2031. So, the plan and the deal was about for the 15 to 20 years that Iran must not acquire its nuclear weapons. It must also keep the stockpile's level of enrichment at the 3.67%. Now, these were the basic contours of the deal. And by January 2016, Iran had drastically reduced the number of centrifuges installed at Natanz and Fordo and shipped tons of low enriched uranium to Russia. Now, why they have shifted that uranium to Russia, we can understand that. We can understand the tensions behind that uranium transfer to Russia, because that's the only ally in the Middle East to the Iran. Now, in addition, the research and development must also take place only at the Natanz and be limited until 2024. But what are the proofs that they were being limited to the Natanz, that they have the only 2 fields? Apart from that, let's comment again back on this thing that no enrichment will be permitted at Fordo until 2031, and the underground facility will be converted into a nuclear physics and technology center. And yes, Iran have agreed upon that. the 1044 centrifuges at the site will produce radioisotopes for use in medicines, agricultural, industry and sciences, and all of these things been happening and promoting the economy. It had been building a heavy water nuclear facility near the town of Arak. Now, spent fuel from a heavy water reactor contains plutonium, which is very suitable for the nuclear bomb. World powers had originally wanted Arak dismantled because of the proliferation risk. And under an interim nuclear deal agreed back in 2013, let me tell you that Iran agreed not to commission or fuel the reactor under the JCPOA. But Iran said that it would redesign the reactor so it could not produce any weapon grade plutonium, and that all spent fuel would be sent out of the country as long as modified reactor exists. Again, an international arena, you cannot judge the state's intention, but you can gauge only what they want to do, but only with their experiments, with their things which they are doing. So, Iran will not be permitted to build additionally heavy water reactors or accumulate any excess heavy water until 2031. Now, this was also the part of the deal which has been backed off, which has been ripped by the Donald J. Trump. Let me tell you that at the time of the agreement, the then US President Barack Obama's administration expressed confidence that JCPOA would prevent Iran from building a nuclear program in secret. Iran has said that, okay, we are committed and we are extraordinary and robustly monitoring verification and inspection, and we will give all these rights to the JCPOA. We will give the rights to the inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is known as IAEA, that global nuclear watchdog continuously can monitors Iran declared nuclear sites. It's also verified that no fissile material is moved covertly to a secret location to build a bomb. Whereas Iran also agreed to implement the additional protocol to their IAEA safeguards agreement, which allow inspectors to access any site anywhere in the country they deem suspicious. So, until 2031, Iran will have 24 days to comply with the IAEA access request. If it refuses, an 8-member joint commission including Iran will rule on the issue. It can decide on punitive steps including the reimposition of sanctions. A majority vote by the commission suffices. So, that was a very brief introduction about the deal, that what were the major core points between the deal. And now, let's end the brief history of the deal, but there's a point which actually intrigued me, and I want to share it with you, that actually United States of America backed off from the deal, but the other signatories to the accord, as they are still committed to it and wanted to continue. Like, I don't know why they wanted to continue, but United States of America has a very traditional allies as an EU, as an like all of these members, and they want the deal continue. Let me tell you that the French President Emmanuel Macron has also called the US decision as a mistake. The United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, which also paid the visit to Donald J. Trump two weeks ago, said that Britain had no intentions of walking away, and Germany's Chancellor, the big star Angela Merkel, said that her country would do everything in our power for Iran to adhere to its obligation in the future. So, this was the reaction which came from all of the participants in the deal except from the United States of America. Why they are so furious, why they are so much thinking about the deal, that if the deal has been ripped off, what will be the economic fiasco. All of the countries which are being involved, including the Iran, will be in the economic fiasco rather than the United States of America. It shows about the foreign policy goals of the United States of America, that they don't want the burden of the other states on their shoulder. And Trump have repeatedly said that I don't want any that kind of burdens on my shoulder. Now, coming back on the counterpart of all these countries, on contrary, that the Iran President Hassan Rouhani, who is regarded as a moderate reformist and under whom the 2015 deal was signed, has indicated that he will try to salvage the deal. He said that his country was preparing to restart uranium enrichment in case the deal collapsed. But he also emphasized that if we achieve the deal's goal in cooperation with other members of the deal, it will remain in place. Now what do you think that this whole fiasco which has been created, the deal was being created by the United States of America, now it has backed off. The other states can remain in that deal and can make the deal comfortable, can make the deal accomplished, because already Donald J. Trump has just said that either if the UK, the European Union, the Merkel state, the French President Macron, he told them that if you'll continue to do the trade with the Iran, this heavy sanctions will be also imposed on those trades. On contrary, Mr. Khamenei, as I've said you that he is the highest power in the land, was skeptical, saying in a televised speech that he did not trust the Britain, France or Germany and would need some guarantees before continuing the nuclear deal, because he has been snapped by the United States of America, so he cannot rely on the traditional allies of the United States of America. On this reaction, the President of the United States of America, he was of the view that he actually warned America of unspecified severe consequences, as he said that if it restarted its nuclear program, that he said that he will actually advise Iran not to start their nuclear program, and he said that he will do a very strong opposition on that thing, and he said that they will face the very severe consequences. Now the question arises that what's the new deal? Or what's the plan B? Actually, Mr. Trump has not decided. He actually cut off the deal, but he didn't give the plan B. So we will now discuss about the plan B, that what plan B he offered. Actually, eventually, he did not offer any plan B or no alternative policy to put in its place. He has actually put United States diplomacy on the collision course with some of the Washington's closest allies. And I've told you before that he told that he'll put the implications, he put the sanctions on those closest allies. And some fear that he may have brought a new and catastrophic regional war in the Middle East that much closer, because as we know that Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is going towards the modernization, and if Iran will start the nuclear plan, it will bring chaos to the region. So overall, in a holistic approach, the deal was though not perfect in many senses. Let's be very clear about that thing, that here what we are talking about, that why the deal was not so much clear, why the deal was not completed in my regard, because the Iran nuclear deal for me is undoubtedly controversial. Mr. Trump has opposed it consistently, though often it appeared for no other logical reason than that it was the creation of his predecessors and the White House, as Mr. Obama was the initiator of that move. Now, if we discuss that, what are the loopholes between the deal? So, for me, the deal was not perfect. It did not cover a range of worrying Iranian activities, from its missile program to its regional behavior. Like, you cannot cope up with the missile program with its regional behavior. It covered what it covered, that's it. Iran's sophisticated and impressive nuclear program. It imposed a whole range of restrictions on Iran's nuclear activities and introduced a more intrusive verification regime to ensure that Iran was complying with the terms. Now, some of these restrictions will expire over time. At best, you could say the agreement prevented Iran from getting close to a breakout point, after which it might dash to get a bomb. The distance between the deal was being struck. The Iran was about to complete its atomic bomb within 2 or 3 months before the deal was being signed. And at worst, you could say that it simply delayed a potential crisis. That's it. You're just kicking the can down the road, as it were. Now, given that without the JCPOA there was a real risk of a war between Israel and Iran, that might not have been such a bad thing. The inconvenient truth for Donald J. Trump is that, as far as it goes, the nuclear deal was working. Now, all the other countries, let's portray about all the other countries which signed up to the agreement believe that Iran is in the full compliance with its term. So does the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, so do key members of the Trump administration itself, not least the new Secretary of State like Mike Pompeo and the Director of the National Intelligence, Dan Coats. But Apart from that, despite this, Mr. Trump presented the JCPOA in a stark and frankly ignorant terms. He largely condemned it for leaving out things that it was never supposed to cover in the first place. Again, coming back towards the traditional partners of the United States of America. Now, let me tell you, my viewers, that the Europeans are clearly very dismayed by the President Trump's announcement. They seem ready to stick with the deal. There will be significant delays before they, or more correctly, European companies are likely to face the wrath of the US Treasury Department sanctions machine. As I've told you, that Trump openly said that we're going to put the sanctions on you. And this could provide time for some gathering of thoughts and diplomatic efforts to explore how much latitude there may be in the United States' position, if any. But we are in an unprecedented situation with potentially dangerous consequences. If the Iran deal does collapse and Iran were to ramp up its nuclear activities, what then? Like, what will be the regional consequences? What will be the consequences on the world? What would be the intra-regional consequences? What would be by the intra-regional rivalry? What will happen to the rivalry of the rivalry of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Kingdom of Iran? So, with the US, the Europeans and NATO increasingly worried about the Russia's more assertive stance. Is this really a moment for a serious transatlantic rift? I think yes. And there, as I've told you, then there is a war sector at Middle East itself. Now, we are in a gambit. It's a totally gambit. Now, Iran and Israel are already engaged in preliminary skirmishes in Syria that risk an all-out confrontation. Iran is smarting from a number of air attacks against its facilities and allies. It is already eager for the revenge. And I'm telling you that if it will come for the revenge, it will be very catastrophic for the whole region. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been the major cheerleader urging Mr. Trump to abandon the nuclear deal. Now, this despite most former senior Israeli intelligence and military figures and even more current ones believing that the deal, for all it has fault, has some value. Now, part of the rationale for the nuclear deal was to keep Iran a respectable distance away from having a bomb. For me, that was the only motive of the United States of America for backing off from the deal. Now, this would give sufficient time for international pressure to be applied if it looked like breaking out from the constraints. But if the JCPOA unravels and Iran step up its nuclear activities, what then? The risk of the Iranian breakout and dash for a bomb could encourage other countries, not least the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to go to the nuclear too. Now, we are living, let me tell you that we are living in a very extraordinary times. And this decision, some 18 months or so in the office perhaps, marks the start of the real Donald Trump foreign policy. One that many critics would say is based upon raw emotions, gut feelings, but certainly not to empirical fact. Even those who agree with Trump's actions are left with the fundamental questions to answer. But we will ask about the Mr. Donald Trump that you have actually cancelled the deal. But what is in your mind? What will you do about that? What will be the next plan of action? We will discuss it right after the break. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back, viewers. So let's start where we left off. Now, Mr. Donald J. Trump have no idea how to curtail, how to contain the Iran's nuclear program, or how to contain the Iran nuclear reaction. So let's first discuss that who was the loser and who is the winner of this decision eventually. Now let me tell you that the Iran's hardliners who were against entering any sort of agreement with the United States of America have been celebrating. They have long accused Mr. Rouhani and his government of surrendering too many of Iran's rights to the West as a part of the nuclear deal. And now some of his detractors are influential. They include the powerful Revolutionary Guard as well as the conservative member of the clergy and the ruling elite. And we have seen the protests which have been emerged 2 to 3 months back in the Iran, and that were against this ruling elite. These hardliners may now use Mr. Trump's decision to push for a tougher stand from Mr. Rouhani or seek to have him replaced by someone who will pursue another policies. Whereas, viewers, the United States decision is unlikely to attract big business to the Iranian market. Sanctions on Iran's energy sector will also hit the country's oil exports, which are a major source of revenue, and it will impact the world's economy too. Iran's economy was lifted from a recession following the implementation of the nuclear agreement and the removal of economic sanctions, but remain sluggish. Now, and ordinary Iranians also say that they have not felt any positive impact in their day-to-day life, in their normal lives. Another winner of let's see that another winner of this deal is the Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been a very vocal critic of the deal, and he says that it fails to provide adequate safeguards against a weapons program. He was in the favor of the United States exiting the agreement. Now, a recent presentation he gave discrediting the accord was cited in Mr. Trump's announcement on Tuesday. Netanyahu has repeatedly argued that the agreement is flawed because Iran is not a reliable partner and has lied about its military nuclear program. Israel sees Iran's influence in the Middle East as the greatest threat to our world. They told that Iran is an existential threat for Israel. The US decision highlights the strong relationship between Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Trump and will serve as their warning to Iran that the nuclear issue must be addressed for the longer term. However, the deal was, according to its European signatories, working its aim to curb Tehran's nuclear program. And we have witnessed that they have actually worked. The deal actually worked. There were no incentives for Iran, but Iran still commit to its commitments. So now discussing another loser in this deal is the European Union, which has economic interest in maintaining the deal. It was once Iran's largest trading partner, and its economic endeavors have only strengthened under the accord. Last month, Iran made the euro its official reporting currency instead of dollar, pointing to increased tension with the United States, because now Iran was also making his move towards the United States of America. Saudi Arabia was among the first to welcome Mr. Trump's decision, so it also lies in the basket of the winners. The country considers Iran a regional rival and is hugely concerned about the nation's growing influence in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen. And let me tell you that the Iran and Saudi Arabia have long been locked in the battle of regional control, but the tensions have escalated between the two nations in recent months. Saudi Arabia's young crown prince Mohammed bin Salman has long opposed the agreement and mounted a quiet lobbying campaign to kill it. Now, Iran and Saudi Arabia represent the two main opposing sides of the 1300-year schism in Islam between the Sunnis and the Shias. So, overall, this deal will impact the region of Middle East, and it will create the chaos in the Middle East. We are witnessing a major shift in the multipolar world order, whereas the US is going towards the primacy in the foreign policy of the United States of America, and the other states are yet under the thumb of the United States of America. Haven't we seen what happened in Syria? Haven't we seen about the airstrikes on the Syria? And now this, where he actually lost the traditional allies but still managed to cancel the deal. Iran has actually lost the grounds after the cancellation of the deal, but I'm telling you that it won't be falling back from its atomic missile program. Now we have to see that how this whole quagmire will be put to an end. Will United States of America again renegotiate on this nuclear deal with some new deals, or maybe the other countries will carry on the deal with having some minor amendments, because they cannot sustain again a huge economic loss, because Iran is a traditional partner. Iran was a traditional partner, and Iran will be a traditional partner for the European countries. But apart from that, the United States of America is the pinnacle in this movement. So let's see what will happen, what major developments will be coming up in the next weekend. See you in the next weekend. Take care of yourself. Just go take care of yourself. Take care, and Allah Hafiz.